That sounds great. So my name is Gail Robertson, and this is my, I guess, starting my 8th year at Trinity University and my 20th year in college admissions altogether. So Trinity is a smaller private liberal arts institution in San Antonio, Texas, and we are right in the heart of the city. So have lots of opportunities for internships and research and everything right at our fingertips for our students. I know that we have lots of questions this morning regarding admission process and changes and everything else, and so I will reserve all of those answers for a little bit later as well, but glad to be here this morning with everyone. Thanks.
Next up is Katie, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Katie Ronk. I'm actually a little new to college admissions. I just graduated from Oklahoma State back in December, and I specifically work with OSU's College of Engineering, Architecture, and Technology. We are located in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is just north of Oklahoma City. And one thing that I think makes C really unique compared to other maybe engineering or architecture or technology programs are we do a lot of emphasis on undergraduate research, and I'm excited to be here.
Okay, and Alexandra?
Yes, I'm Alexandria. I work for the University of Houston. I am the Access and Outreach Specialist for our office. I'm coming up on my 3rd year with the university, but I've been in higher ed since I graduated college in 2011. I'm in that field. As far as the University of Houston goes, we are a public institution. A little bit more than 46,000 students located right in the heart of Houston, Texas. We're the 2nd most diverse public institution in the United States. Tier 1 research institution with over almost 600 different student organizations. So lots to do on as well as off campus.
Okay, and I'm Judy Young with College Excellence. I help kids navigate this complicated college admissions process. So we're delighted to have you all join us this morning, because I know parents out there have tons of questions. So we're going to roll through a few things together. So please jump in where the questions pertain to you. So I think the first big question that I'm hearing a lot is, will the college admissions process change with the coronavirus? So Gail, I guess I'll start that one with you, and ladies, please jump in as it makes sense if you have things to add.
Yeah, I think probably the basic answer here is yes. I mean, it has to change with everything that we're seeing. I think that how those changes are actually are actualizing within different schools, you are going to see a little bit of variation institution to institution. So I guess let me speak about Trinity specifically, just with how we are adapting. So I think one of the big changes that we are seeing is that we have decided to go test optional for the next 3 years, and that was in direct response to the limited number of test dates that particularly our entering class of 2021 will have. And so that is going to be something that for us, going test optional, we are going to make sure that both admission and scholarship is test optional. And so students do not feel like they are somewhat required financially speaking to still take an SAT or ACT. So I think that's probably oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so for people who don't know what test optional is, because I think there's a lot of confusion, if you should just clarify what that means for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So test optional is basically a practice where neither an SAT or an ACT would be required in order for a student's application to be complete and reviewed for admission. So Trinity does.
If they do send it in, is it looked at, is the question?
It typically is. And so, Trinity is a holistic review institution, which basically means we are going to be looking at all of the materials that are sent for an application. So generally that is the application, the essay, the transcript. It has been test scores as well as extracurricular activities and recommendations. And so we will look at all of those materials as well as the context of a student's environment. So really that change for us is that we are removing that testing piece. If a student is still submitting testing, we will look at that in the overall review. But if a student is unable or chooses not to submit a test score, then that would not be part of that review process. I think the other change for us right now as well is that we are trying to be mindful about just really the deadlines altogether. And so our regular decision deadlines, we are scooting back ever so slightly. And so it has typically been a January 15th deadline, and we will be moving our regular decision and our early decision round 2 to a February 1 date as well. And that's just to allow students a little more flexibility with having maybe senior year grades from that mid-year in as part of their review process, especially for those students who may not be using testing or might have been at an institution that went pass-fail for a semester, really to be able to show an additional semester of grades.
That's a lot to absorb and great information. So is all this on the website? Because I imagine, of course, that's different for each college. So.
It is, yes. And I think that as far as the test optional piece goes, I think many institutions have gone that route. The way in which a school sort of deems themselves as test optional can indeed differ school to school. So sometimes there might be a replacement, either an essay or an interview perhaps, or a different review process. And so that is something that probably needs to be looked at school to school as well.
And just one point of clarification again for any parents who are listening. You made an important point that you're trying to make it test optional for, I believe you said merit aid. If you could expand on what normally happens and then what does that really mean,
Yes. So I think
advantage if you don't have a test, particularly for, any sort of aid.
Sure. So I think as we are approaching this, one of the really important pieces for us is that we are trying to make sure that we are building our new review process around kind of a neutral territory with testing. So if a student has testing, great. If a student doesn't have testing, great. But that we are not approaching an application with an assumption about whether a student has submitted testing or not. So basically what I mean by that is, if a student has decided not to submit a test score, I need to not assume that it was a low test score, so they've withheld it. And I need to not assume that perhaps the testing date wasn't available and a student wasn't able to take it. So we're really approaching it from a neutral territory there. So historically, we have looked at either GPA and SAT or ACT as two primary factors for our review process for the scholarship side of things, for merit-based aid. This next year, we will not be requiring students to have the test scores as part of that review process. And so we will actually still use the test scores for students that submit it. And for students that have not submitted test scores, we will actually be doing a holistic review for their merit-based scholarship as well.
So one last question, and that is, in the absence of test scores, does that mean you take a harder look at other things, or, how do you evaluate students who look very, very similar? Because obviously grades are not standardized. How do you evaluate when you have, 100 kids who look very similar on their statistics minus test scores?
Sure. I think this is really where that holistic approach comes in, and a little bit of that context piece. And I know that my colleagues will probably also have some feelings about this. I think when we are looking at students' applications, we have to look at the environment that they're in. So for us, without testing or even with testing, sometimes students are looking similar on applications. And what really is able to I think, help a student distinguish themselves within the process will be things such as the essay, where students really have a little bit more ownership over how to have that personal statement and really put themselves on paper rather than just a transcript or just a test score. I think that the other opportunity would probably be virtual visits to campus and also virtual interviews. Campuses are beginning.
Website as well. I mean, how will students or families find out about what's available?
Yes, so everything is available online to be able to schedule those. I would actually say pretty much every university is offering virtual visits right now, right? We all have some sort of function that will allow students to visit us, from their living room or their bedroom. I think the interviews probably is a little bit different school to school, but that is something that we offer as well. But really, I think that the distinguishing qualities will probably be those areas in which a student can really put themselves into the application. And then I think the other answer to the question, Judy, is looking at the context of the environment. So what classes has the student chosen to take? Have they taken additional AP classes? Are AP classes offered at this particular high school? And really looking at, everything that they've taken advantage of within the opportunities that are available to them.
Wonderful. And thank you for the information. Alexandria, sure everybody out there needs a minute just to breathe. What was all that? This is being recorded, guys. So Alexandria, please jump in with what, whatever you'd like to add, or tell us what is the case at U of H, particularly since you're in access. I'm sure everyone out there has a lot of questions.
For sure. So similar to like Gail was saying, with Trinity University, right? We have all, every institution across the United States, we have all made accommodations just with everything that's going on. So currently, right, because we're still taking admissions applications for fall, okay? We extended our deadlines, which it is online. So whether you're, a freshman applicant or a transfer student, similar to Trinity and like a lot of other institutions, right, there were certain students, right, that could not take the ACT or SAT. So we are waiving them if students couldn't take it. So we typically, we follow the assured admissions policy here for the state of Texas, right, where your class rank determined the minimum test score you need. Well, if you couldn't take your ACT or SAT test, that's okay. We decided to waive it. And we went to a holistic review approach as well. So where students can submit, the letters of recommendation, the personal statement, a resume. We also made accommodations for like fee waivers, right? So if a student and their family was impacted financially from COVID, they could submit a fee waiver, a lot more easier, right? They could literally, before if they had to do like a form and get a counselor to sign off, they could literally go to our website and type in their situation. And, so we made that a lot more accessible for students to participate. Now, those are our current admission, standards and practice and policies. Mm-hmm. We even made, yes, the university had a COVID update page, but then we also made one specifically for admissions because, a lot of our practices and policies had to change. As far as anything for 2021, we're still working on what that looks like. Everything right now is temporary. Of course, we're assessing the situation. Anything for 2021, whether it be spring, summer, fall, our application typically opens up August 1st. So, we'll be making those decisions soon.
Wonderful. Boy, this is a lot for families to keep up with. And Katie, how would you like to fill us in for Oklahoma State? Would you like to add anything?
So as of the moment for our fall 2021 students, we haven't made any massive changes. We open our applications for fall of next year, July 1st. And we are looking at extending the deadline. So we have a window from July 1st to November 1st where students who send in, all of their test scores, their transcript, and put in, leadership resume and essay information. We want them to get all that information in by November 1st to be considered for priority scholarships. So, giving them the most opportunity to receive the most money. Right now, we are looking at extending that deadline just with test score testing being put on hold. But we're, continuing to look and alter and see how we can change that and be accommodating to our students. But we definitely encourage all of our students to go ahead and get started with the application process because we understand that, what looks certain right now may not look certain in the fall, but, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and start those essays and, putting together a leadership resume.
Wonderful. And just to clarify, so your application for fall is open, correct?
It will be open July 1st.
It will be open July 1st.
Yes,
Alexandria, same question for you, and then Gail.
Can you repeat the question?
Question is, when does your application open for fall?
Oh, August 1st for anything for 2021. Yep, August 1st.
Very good. And how about yourself, Gail? When does that
Same for us, for August 1st. And so we do take a couple of different types of applications so students can choose between what they would like, but common application will open for everyone August 1st. Applied Texas for us is August 1st, and then also Coalition August 1st.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's so important for families to understand because there are certainly some changes going on. Okay, now the deep breath. So now let's talk a little bit about testing. And Alexandria, I feel like you began to touch on this. So what role will SAT, ACT, other standardized tests play in the process since so many tests are being canceled now?
Yeah, so kind of like, I said before, right? So we're waiving test scores for this current application cycle because, students can still apply. So for any seniors that are out there, our deadlines have extended. So they still have time, right? Without using those test scores. So for fall 2020, the last day to actually apply is July 17th, and then any documents July 24th. So when we say document deadline, meaning like transcripts, any app fees, right? Any of those resumes and letters of recommendation, as well as personal statement. So that's currently, but for 2021, we don't know yet. We have not decided. Our Board of Regents, made a temporary waive just for this admission cycles. And, especially since typically anyway, right, freshmen have to like June, okay? Transfers have to like late June typically. So they just focus on this admission cycle. And again, like, we're still trying to decide for 2021. So I can't say, how test scores are going to impact our admissions.
And let me just clarify for anyone listening, because it's a little different for U of H, because basically someone who's now a rising senior, you're talking about class of 2021 when you say you don't know about that. Because when you say deadline July 24th, that's for people who started from last year. I want to clarify that because not everyone
most definitely
as late a deadline as yourself.
Yes.
And then how about for you, Katie? Have you guys decided what sort of role testing will play?
So right now, with our college, we do have an ACT, SAT requirement to be considered a full College of Engineering student. And the reason that we do that is just because the biggest emphasis in our college is math. And we want to make sure that our students are equipped to handle that. So right now we still are doing the minimum of a 24 on their ACT, and then a 31 to be accepted into our scholars program. But we are keeping in mind.
Is that sort of
so our scholars program is basically any student who applies to OSU and has a 31 on their ACT are invited to interview for our scholars program. This is a really great program that I think makes our college really unique because we offer students anywhere from a $29,000 to $69,000 package. This includes scholarships and trips that they get to participate in. It's a really great opportunity for them to network and work with other students in the college, as well as receive educational and financial help. So right now we are still doing that, but like I said earlier, we are keeping in mind that things can be different in the fall, and we want to do our best to be accommodating of those students. So we haven't quite yet made any concrete plans, but we are understanding that things are subject to change, and that's okay.
So just so I'm clear, I mean, in the event that for some reason, no one can take an SAT, they have no score. Does that mean right now you haven't made a decision of will you find some alternative? Can they submit an AP test?
Yes, so that's some decisions that are made of people that are way above my pay grade. But it is being looked at, and we're trying to do our best to ensure that students are given the best opportunity, but they're also maybe not biting off a little more than they can chew if they were to come in as a College of Engineering student.
Makes perfect sense. And Gail, I'll throw that to you. What about testing, and what role is that playing for you guys this year?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I think going the test optional route, that offers us a little bit of flexibility for students that may not have been able to take one of the exams. I know that a lot of our students typically take their first exam in March and then typically take it again in the summer, maybe early fall. And this year, that is the time frame, obviously, that's been effective. I just added something to the chat option here that hopefully will be a resource for folks if they are looking for test optional universities. This is actually a searchable option to see which other schools might be either test optional permanently or might have a temporary test optional policy during COVID-19. So I think that for Trinity specifically, if a student has a test score, They are welcome to submit it. If they do have multiple test scores, we still are looking at a super score for those students as well. So we're reaching across the different test dates to have that higher combined or the higher composite score. Or if they have no test score or would prefer to not give us a test score, then they can choose to do that as well.
If you could just verbally tell us what that resource is for people who may just be listening and not going into the chat box.
Absolutely. So the website is actually fairtest.org. And it is a compilation of over probably 1,500 schools at this point that have either gone test optional permanently or temporarily due to some of the test restrictions. So fairtest.org.
That's FAIR.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Spelling bugs out there. Okay, wonderful. So this is incredible information. So we're so glad you're here with us. Wow. Okay, so I think we sort of touched on that, and I guess we'll start again with you, Gail. How can students find out about your school? You know, obviously with your campuses being closed, and I guess I'm going to throw on there a little surprise question for you, which is, have you guys decided, are you going to be open in the fall? So how do they find out about you? And do you know yet you're going to be open for the fall?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Katie and Alexandria when I say this. I think for all of us, it is go online to find out what's happening, right? I mean, as our institutions are making decisions, I think that is really going to be kind of that resource where we're trying to provide any updates. You know, that is the best option. I will say that we do also try to rely on email and texting to deliver messages to students who may already be in our database about what's going to be happening in the fall or in the future. But I will also say, and this is sort of that side note of not having test scores, for a lot of students, we actually see that maybe we don't have their information and we would normally have already been communicating with them, but because they didn't take an SAT or ACT, we don't have their email address. And so again, it would really behoove a student that if they have a couple of universities in mind that they know that they're going to be applying to, if you are already not hearing from those schools, go to their websites and register so that you can get some of those details as well. So I think all of the virtual visits, all of the virtual interviews, virtual sessions are all going to be available online, and that is also where we're posting any changes.
So they register, what does that mean? Does that mean sign up for the mailing list? What exactly does it mean?
It does, yes. So signing up for the mailing list will probably put you in touch with your admission counselor, and then any other events that may be happening either virtually or in your area.
Okay.
You asked the surprise question, Judy, of are we open in the fall, right? I think the short answer is yes, we are planning to open in the fall. We are actually going to be opening just a little bit earlier. So we're shifting our academic calendar up by about a week. And we will be actually ending our in-person coursework at Thanksgiving, and then finals will happen virtually afterwards. And then we will have an extended Christmas break or winter break, and we will be coming back for spring a little bit later than we typically will in kind of that mid to late January timeframe. So I think that the the academic calendar will look a little different. Obviously, we will be making accommodations on campus for students that are needing to take coursework online. Then we will certainly accommodate those students as well, but we will be open in the fall.
Wow, and I'm hearing something, that I've heard before, that people are going home at Thanksgiving, but that's particularly important for international students to understand, correct? Because that's a very different time frame.
It is. And I think, one of the beautiful things about working at a slightly smaller institution is that we can also really individualize and personalize different students' needs. And so when we're looking for, working with our international students, or working with students out of state, or working with students who may have fewer resources to head home for that amount of time, we certainly want to be sensitive to that as well. So those will all be populations that we work with.
And will you actually be losing some days then? It sounds like a broader, vacation or time away. So are you losing some days? Or
we're not necessarily losing days, they're just shifting. So we're shifting up a little bit for that fall semester, and then we're shifting back just a little bit for that spring semester. So we will actually be ending a little bit later in May as well. So.
Okay, that makes sense. So Katie, I guess same question for you. I know you did mention that, of course, they can go online, but would you like to talk about whether you're going to be open in the fall, or do you know that yet?
Yeah, of course. Well, and going back to how to find out more information, I also posted a link in the chat option that will give students all they need to know about virtual admissions. I highly recommend that. And the great thing that I think that we as a university offer is not only are you getting the campus tour, but then you can also go in and sign up to get basically a small presentation from the college. So whether it be the College of Engineering, Architecture, and Technology, the Ferguson School of Agriculture, College of Arts and Sciences, you're learning about the college that you are potentially getting a degree in. But for those who are maybe wanting to see it in person, we are opening our campus back up to visitors July 7th. So students can take an in-person tour. Our tour sizes are a little smaller. We're only allowing 5 students with 1 guest each.
Wow. So you're in-person tours, but very small?
Yes. Typically our tours are about 40 per day, but 40 students per day, but we are we're making accommodations to make sure everyone is safe. We will be kind of constantly reevaluating that number just to make sure that the most students are getting to see the tours. I know that it's very different seeing something online rather than face to face. But I would highly encourage it if someone is, thinking maybe this is an option they're comfortable doing, but also we have that virtual option for students who travel is just not something they're comfortable with. Maybe it's something that just isn't in the cards right now. I highly encourage that. And then about our fall, we are open in the fall and we are resuming classes around that mid-August timeframe that we typically do. But much like Gail, we are doing our Dead Week and Finals Week online. So when students go home for Thanksgiving, they will stay home and just kind of have a longer time frame at home.
So will students be tested for COVID when they get on campus, or how is that going to work?
Yes, that is the plan right now. And we are also making accommodations. We're having smaller class sizes with being such a large university. Size of people and groups of people is a big concern. So we are working towards smaller class sizes, distancing students when they are in the classroom, and making sure everyone has a mask.
Oh, wow. It's going to be a long class. I guess this is very interesting. How about you, Alexandra? I didn't realize all that.
So similar. So my answer is a kind of a combination of Gail and both Katie. So classes will resume in the fall. Our President Couture made an announcement last week or the week before. And forgive me, my dates are still so off. I don't know if it's last week
every day too.
or the week before, but I know it was recent. So we're gonna do a combination of 3 things because similar like Katie, we're a large institution as well. So we have the high flex classes, which are kind of like face-to-face instruction. Well, not kind of, but it is face-to-face instruction, of course, with the 6 feet apart and whatnot.
And masks, I mean, like Katie said, I hadn't thought about that.
Yep. And then so with the face-to-face, right? So a student can actually come to the class or I shouldn't say and the class is also going to be allowed a live stream so that students can attend virtually, or they can access the class, a recorded version of the class if they choose not to come, so that way they can watch it outside of the normal class hour. And then some of the classes will be just all virtual. So live stream, at normal, a particular time during the day if they don't want to come to campus. And then the third option being classes, just, some of the classes being fully online.
But what about access to professors? What if you have a question? How does that work now? Do they still have
Do you have a question during class or?
Just for the professor in general, are there virtual office hours now?
Yeah,
Or?
so like professors will still be doing office hours, if it's in person, I'm not sure yet. That I haven't seen that announcement yet, but we're still gonna make our professors accessible for students if they have questions. So that'll be for sure a thing. What that looks like, I don't know, but it'll definitely happen.
And I assume the same for you, Katie and Gail, same question. There'll be access to whether
Yeah.
it's TAs or professors in some form. Okay.
So similar, and I think Katie kind of touched on it. We have, and I think Gail too, right? So when I said it was a combination. So as far as like if students want to, check out the University of Houston, we do have, and I may have mentioned this before, so like online tours and virtual campus visits that are conducted by like student ambassadors as well as like admissions counselors. They can create sessions to like speak to academic advice, like the academic college recruiters. So like we have made everything online and accessible for, students trying to, learn more information about the University of Houston. As far as campus tours and visits resuming in the fall, I'm not sure yet. Well, none of us are sure yet. So still trying to figure that out.
A question for all three of you. So if a student wants to talk to another student just to get, normally they'd come for a in-person visit, how can they get in touch with another student, just to understand what campus life is like? And that's a question for any of you who would like to jump in.
So we have our students or any interested student, they can actually, go to our website, and I'll post it in the chat too, right? If they want to speak to another student, our student ambassadors are also conducting calls, right? You can request a call from a UH student ambassador who works in our Office of Admissions and talk, about the university. We try to pair them up based off of what their interests are. As well as when we do a lot of the presentations, we'll have a student ambassador available as well, so they can still give that student experience.
And that's all online?
Yep, and I'll post it too in the chat.
And is that the same for you, Katie, and for Gail, if they want to talk to a student?
Yeah, so every college within OSU Academic College, every academic college has student ambassadors, and for the College of Engineering specifically, if a student was wanting to reach out to a seat ambassador, myself or Adam Stevens, our prospective student coordinator, both of our names are on SEAT's website. They can just send us an email, shoot me a text, and I would be more than happy to get them in touch with one of our SEAT ambassadors.
And before I forget, before we get off, if you ladies would give us your contact information so anyone can.
Yeah, of course.
Gail, anything you wanted to add? I'm assuming they could reach out.
Pretty similar here. If students are wanting to connect with a Trinity student, we actually have a specific email address that is probably pretty helpful, and that's askatiger@trinity.edu. If you're wanting to connect with someone just a little more generally. We do have students, our current students participate in our daily information sessions as well. And so that can be another great way to connect with some of our current students and find out a little bit more.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm sure people out there are learning a ton, because I know I'm learning a ton. Wow. And this is a question I would have too. So, we've talked about it on the periphery kind of, but how are colleges going to consider grades and class rank this year? Because as you know, some people are going pass fail. Are you even getting class rank this year? I mean, how does that work? Start with you, I guess, Gail. I don't know who I started with last time.
Yeah, so for us, I think, as I mentioned before, that context piece is really important with a holistic review. And so I think both the common application and the coalition application are adding questions this year. So both of those are applications that you can use. The common application, I think, is about 800 different schools nationwide that will accept the common app. Coalition is about 160 or so. And they're both asking a question that is basically something along the lines of, how has COVID-19 affected you both personally and academically? And so that's a really great platform to be able to give students to talk a little bit about that experience. And I think that can be logistics, right? My school went pass fail, or it could be logistics as in my grade was frozen at the time of moving to remote learning, which I think some districts have done that as well. And I think for some students too, they can talk about it a little bit more philosophically in the extent of, remote learning did not work for me. I need the one-on-one interaction, or I need the face-to-face interaction. I need the accountability. Or those students that say, yes, I loved it. And this actually was a great experience for me, and I really liked the independent learning. And so I think it gives students a little bit of a voice there. And so I would encourage students to utilize those opportunities to tell us a little bit more so that we can have a better understanding of maybe where they have been academically speaking for this past semester. I think that as many school districts and many schools are still making plans for the fall, I know that is obviously going to be something that we definitely are keeping an ear out for, as far as how districts may be approaching some of the grading scales, some of the learning approaches for this next fall as well.
And is it just students who have the opportunity to talk about COVID, or do counselors have a chance to put that in context for their schools as well?
Counselors do as well. And I would actually even say within teacher recommendations, there is not necessarily a specific question about it, but I would assume that many of our teachers will be able to explore that just a little bit as well, especially those teachers that may have had students during the change from in-person learning to remote learning to talk a little bit about that exchange with the student.
Great, that's helpful to understand. And how about you, Katie? What are you seeing along those lines?
Yeah, so, and like Gail, we understand that the pass-fail option either works really well for some people or it doesn't at all. So we are keeping that in mind when our fall 2021 students are applying. And I think that this is why our application process is not just what's your ACT score and what's your GPA. That's why we have essays and an opportunity for students to send in their leadership resume. And I think that those are great places where we can really connect with the student and see who they are as a person and not just a name. And I don't quite know what the essays are this year, but we look at those as much as, if not even more, than a student's GPA and test scores. And also something I forgot to say, we are now taking the super score, which I think is going to be really great, especially for the students who maybe took it before everything happened and didn't quite get the test score in, say, math or English that they wanted. I mean, hopefully speaking that students will get to take tests in the fall. We have added that to our application just to give students the most opportunity.
And just to clarify for people out there, if you can explain what super scoring is, what it means.
Yeah, so the super score, for the super score to take place, you need to take the ACT more than once. So say I got a 20 in math, a 20 in English, science, and so on, but I wanted my math score to go up. I could go in and take only the ACT math portion, and if my math score went up, that would replace that 20 in math that I received to bump up my math score.
I think that's starting in September, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's a new feature that's coming up. Okay, that's great. And I have a question I'm going to try and hold on to, but Alexandra, anything to add about role of grades? You know, how's that going to affect things at U of H?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but
okay,
figuring that out. I'm gonna be very honest with y'all. So, you know, with us going, you know, our admissions policies is based on the state of Texas assured admissions policy. So when something like COVID happens, and you know, we have to create a holistic review process, and what. Granted, it's pretty standard, and you know, a lot of universities use the same ones, but like for an institution where we don't do that, you know, that is a big shift and a big change for us.
And that's important for people to understand that not everyone's holistic. So maybe you can just clarify, you weren't holistic before, but now you're being forced to do that because of circumstances. So
correct. So
just so
remember, all we typically require a part of our admissions decision, and we're talking about just freshman students. So of course the fee, transcripts, and test scores, right? Typically for a student that, you know, their school ranks, their class rank will be on the, you know, on their transcript. So, you know, sometimes counselors submit rank letters on the student behalf. It just depends, but it's really standard as far as the documents that we receive. So for us to transition to holistic review, or asking, of course, the fee. Now, 2 letters of recommendation, a personal statement, you know, an official transcript where a student can try to upload it. Or, of course, if the school was still sending out transcripts, of course, we'll still take it from the school, and then a personal statement. And then for us to have a committee to then evaluate, you know what I mean? So very
a lot of changes, because there was no essay required before for people who didn't realize that.
correct. So a big drastic change for our office particularly.
Right.
Imagine so for any other institution that was not doing the holistic review.
Right.
Oh, and then with us still being in a current admission cycle where we're already still taking applications, right? So typically, like I said, our freshman application would typically would be ending around this time. Transfer applicants, typically close at the end of June. So with us extending our deadlines, right, we're still processing, going through committee review, right, for this current cycle. August 1st is quickly approaching, and we're trying to decide it and figure it out, all the powers that be, but like it's just not announced yet.
Right. That makes sense. And
so we don't know how rank is going to be impacted.
Right.
We'll even be asking for that. As far as our transfer students, I don't know officially yet, but I imagine, now y'all don't take my word for this, because next week something totally could be different, or the weeks after, as far as the pass-fail option, right? Because typically for a transfer student, it's a minimum GPA requirement. Some, we do have a few impacted majors where like maybe they needed some courses or a higher GPA, but like, what does that look like with pass or fail, right? So say you weren't trying to come to the University of Houston till spring 2021, and you're gonna have a whole semester, maybe pass or fail grades if you chose that option. So again, we are still trying to figure it out.
So, and this is a question for anyone who would like to answer. I have students who have taken the AP exams. How will they be getting credit for those? Because the AP exams were online. There were, a few issues with that. And I guess, Gail, maybe I'll start with you on that one. How are you viewing the AP?
We have not changed our policy for the AP exams. And so even with the change in the testing for the 45 minutes and the at-home exam structure, typically for us, 4s and 5s will earn a student credit for a particular class. So that will continue. We are not changing our policy.
Okay, very good. And Alexandria or Katie, if you want to add
Same thing. We're not changing our policy. So it just depends on the course, right? 3 sometimes, or a lot of times like those STEM related courses need like a 4 or 5.
Okay.
Information is online as well, but yeah, we haven't changed.
Okay, Katie, same answer for you?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay, and believe it or not, we are almost at wrapping up time. So I'm trying to see what people will, all of these I know they're going to want to know about, but I think we started to talk about this, but will financial aid, and Gail, I think you spoke to this a little bit about how financial aid will or will not be changing with Trinity this year. So if you want to just recap that would be great. And then I'd like you, Katie and Alexandria, to answer that as well.
Yeah, so I think for financial aid, and I guess I'm using that as the umbrella term of both need-based and the merit-based.
Correct.
The merit-based structure, we have been pretty upfront with the types of scholarships that we've been able to offer, and we do post those online. We will have our new program out, so those students that are applying for fall of 2021, we will have that scholarship structure available on our website probably in July. So within about a month, we will have that information out. I think on the need-based side of things, we actually have already seen a lot of changes within families needing to really kind of look at their financial circumstances and be able to share some of that information with us. I think one of the
Does that mean update? When you say needing to share that, what do you mean by that?
So with the FAFSA, and so let me back up here, right? I'm going into financial aid terms. So with the FAFSA, which is that free application for federal student aid, that is something that students will fill out. That is the form students will fill out to really open up any kind of need-based aid. So Trinity requires a FAFSA. We also require the CSS profile. So the FAFSA, though, will look at prior year. So for students that are entering in 2021, they are filling out the 2019 tax information. And we obviously know if your family has been affected by COVID-19 and economic changes, that is not reflected in your FAFSA. And so I think we had many families within that March to even now that are needing to supply additional information so that we can better assess the financial need that a family actually has. So I think for us, because we use the CSS profile, which looks at 3 years of data, we're actually able to adjust, I think, a little bit more easily because we already have a little bit of that data. I would encourage families, though, this year, normally I would say, look at some of the financial aid calculators, see if, filling out the FAFSA makes sense for you. I would actually encourage all families to fill out the FAFSA, because if circumstances change as an institution, and this would be the same for all of us, as an institution, we can pivot much more easily on a financial aid offerings if we already have something on file to start with. And
Great.
so it really, I think, would make sense for families to go ahead and fill out the FAFSA this year, even if they think that they may not qualify for aid, just in case circumstances change a little bit on down the road.
How about you, Katie? What are you seeing in financial aid with Oklahoma State?
Yeah, so we, right when everything hit, we were really focused on our current students, because we had a lot of students who maybe a family member lost a job that was helping with them to pay for college. And so we've gone back and looked at students, and we've even had students reach out to us and just say, this is not something I can do. So we've been working very closely and very personally with these students. I think that, when you see a big institution, you don't really think of that individual face-to-face relationship. And that's something that our college really prides ourselves in, is those, being accessible to students and them feeling comfortable enough to be transparent with us. So we've been working with our current students, and we've also been looking at students who were admitted for this upcoming fall semester. We've gone back and looked and seen, we've had those students also reach out to us and say, I don't know if I can afford to come to college. So we've looked at merit, we've looked at financial aid, and like Gail said, we have really encouraged students to go ahead and fill out the FAFSA, because like she said, it's a lot easier when we already have something on file. But we're continuing to work with students, and we're continuing to see, okay, where can we assist these students just to help them. And we're just really working on talking with students, and I'm really grateful that we have students that feel that they can talk to us about this, but also our financial aid office is wonderful, and they are constantly working with students to help them.
That's great. That's helpful. Alexandria, do you have anything you'd like to add from the U of H point?
So similar to Katie, we concentrated first on our current students. Mm-hmm. So whether that was through like the CARES Act or, our UH emergency fund, we just opened up like our reconsideration for any students that are trying to, like any first time in college students trying to come in the fall. So similar, like everybody said, right, if your parents lost their income, or maybe you lost your income, right, and you need to be reconsidered, right? So when we say reconsider, basically appeal the financial aid decision that you got before, a financial aid package, because like Gail said, right, using prior year, that information or what's currently going on is not reflective, or your taxes at that time or your income at that time is not currently reflected. So we did change that. As far as what we'll be doing for any other upcoming academic years, don't know yet.
Okay, let's stay tuned. And we are almost at time. So what I'd like to give you, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much. This was incredible information, and I'm sure all the parents out there really appreciate the update from each of you, and understanding what's different and what's the same with each of you. But is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about? So I'll give you each just like a minute and a half to tell me anything we didn't talk about that you'd like to make sure we get in. So Gail, I guess I'll start with you.
I think a lot of students right now, I guess I'm hearing this from other other virtual sessions and so forth. I think a lot of students are also a little bit nervous about some of the extracurricular changes and impact. And we talked a lot about testing, and we talked a little bit about, grades and so forth. I guess I would like to leave the conversation with a little bit of a feeling of reassurance, like everybody is feeling the same thing, right? And so I think it's really important that students realize that we know that your lives academically, socially, extracurricularly have been impacted in every way. Our standards and our expectations are not going to be the same as they have been. So I'm not expecting students to have, completed the baseball season. I'm not expecting that students will have completed the debate tournament that they were, initially scheduled for, and those types of things. So I think what I am interested in is maybe how students have responded to the extra time on their hands. And it could be something as simple as starting to read again. For fun, right? And not just for class. It could be that we've learned to knit, or we're making masks at home. Maybe it is being socially aware and participating in some of these dialogues and opportunities that our country has in front of us. And so I think with any of these things, these are really great ways for students to let us know what they are involved in and what they are involved with. And I think that it's those kinds of elements that will be particularly, I think, of interest. We're not necessarily expecting that you have traveled this summer and attended camps and had internships in that same way, but I think we are still able to be involved in some capacity. And so I think that there will be some interest from us in how students have been engaged.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Gail. How about you, Katie? Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave?
Yeah, like Gail, we understand that, your track season didn't finish. You didn't get the opportunity to finish out those things. That maybe that's where you really shine, and maybe that's where the biggest emphasis is on your resume. So I would just, like I said before, highly encourage students to put in a little more time in their essay. That's where every student gets the chance to tell their story, to be transparent with us as a college as to who you are, what's going on, and what you're passionate about. I think that, I even remember when I was a student, that was the thing that I could control, and I could determine how much effort was put into it. So I really encourage students to, if July 1 rolls around and you decide Oklahoma State is where you want to apply, and maybe you're not at your summer camp, spend a little extra time on that essay, because that is really where you will shine and where we will see who you are as a student.
That's fantastic. How about you, Alexandra? They're getting some great information out here today.
I would say, and I'm gonna explain this, students should do whatever is best for them. So like, we never, right, you could have never told me, I'm sure like everybody across the world, like that this world pandemic was gonna happen, and like we would be in the house for months, right? So everybody's situation, right, looks different. Like I've had students who, and I think maybe Gail said this, or forgive me if I'm misquoting, but like we've had some students who love it, right? They at home, they get to swim in a pool, play basketball. Then we have some students where like, I don't have the best home environment, so I'm dying to get back to classes, whether it's high school or, go back to their jobs or whatever the case may be. And that's okay. So like, really do what's best for you. So like, I've heard some conversation with students where they're thinking about a trade, right? They're rethinking about what they want to do. Like they think they need to go into something that is essential, right? Like an essential type of job. Like where before, if they thought about like becoming a beautician, which is nothing wrong with cosmetology, right? But we've seen, and I don't know if you have any cosmetology friends, but like my sister who does makeup, where like she wasn't getting any clients, right? So like that impacted her. And so, you have some students who are now thinking about going into nursing or some other essential field. That is okay. If you decide, hey, maybe I don't want to go to a four-year institution, but I want to go to a community college and pick up a trade, that is okay, right? So I think just being comfortable and confident, knowing like, hey, doing whatever it is that you need to do for you, that is okay. As far as, and I just want to touch on the extracurricular activities, because I've been asked this question a lot with these virtual panels, and I'm gonna be very honest, right? Depending upon what academic level you are in, so like a freshman in high school, right? It's okay. You got some time to kind of like participate and do things. Now, for any of my students that are rising seniors, right? If we're looking at your application in the fall and you don't have any extracurricular activities, like you're not a freshman, you have from the time you were a freshman to a junior. Now, if we just see something is not there for March through the end of this current semester, that's okay because we were all at home together. So yes, we want you to be honest and tell the truth, but I'm gonna be very honest, like you should have been doing something. And something looks different for everybody. So whether it's working, whether it's babysitting, whether it's volunteering, or maybe you did have the opportunity to play sports or be in a band. So, I'm gonna be very honest about that, right? Like there should have been something there. But I've also heard people say like this has been their opportunity to get creative. And I think Gail touched on it too, like, reading more. I've seen some, like one student told me, like, I started a grass cutting business, right? So before all he was doing was school and sports and stuff like that. And now he's making money like cutting grass. So I think this is an opportunity too to get creative as far as your involvement. Like, we're seeing it, if you're on your social media feeds, you see people doing all kind of interesting stuff. So, really tap into that creativity side.
Well, I mean, we are about out of time, but this has been fantastic. And I just want to thank you, Gail and Katie and Alexandria. So we had with us today Trinity University, we had Oklahoma State, we had U of H, and just got a wealth of wonderful information. And I'd just like to add in from everything I've heard from you guys, be flexible, colleges understand things have changed. Start now, don't wait, right? Take advantage of all the opportunities in front of you. And go on their websites. Everything you need to know is on their websites. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us this morning and giving us incredible information. And we really appreciate having you be here and give us an insight into what's happening with college admissions. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.